be left with the impression that there was a frivolous objection made by the defense, and that over the break it was exactly confirmed, just as the state suggested, that this was the same piece of evidence and now we're moving on. That affects the fairness and the credibility of our presentation and our representation of Mr. Harris. So I would ask the court for a curative instruction, and at the very least a direction for the state to lay the proper foundation for what is about to be shown, and make very, very clear that what is about to be shown is not what was previously shown to the court and defense counsel earlier this year.
What was shown to the court earlier this year was the first scan of the same vehicle, same car seat, same driver's seat. But technically, they are correct, and they brought it to my attention that this is a new scan. My intention was to correct that in front of the jury and actually apologize to the defense and point out that they were correct with that. And Mr. Lumpkin and Mr. Rodriguez did bring that to my attention. It's the same vehicle, same car seat, but they're technically correct. It was the second scan, and I feel like I need to correct that and apologize in front of the jury, so I'll do so.
Oh, I think that's a reasonable solution. I think it's better than me saying something. Anything else? Sure.
It's all right for the jury. Please be seated.
Judge, let me start by saying that I misspoke about something, and defense counsel pointed that out to me during the break, so I want to apologize to Mr. Rodriguez and apologize in front of the jury. Technically speaking, what was shown to the defense in Cobb County could not have been this new scan because we hadn't scanned it yet. What was shown to them was a prior scan of the same vehicle, same car seat, same doll, using the same image software. But technically speaking, what we're about to show is a new scan that was taken down here. So I apologize for that misstatement, Mr. Rodriguez. It wasn't unintentional.
Thank you.
That being said, we have provided this to them in discovery. I believe I tendered states 930. I don't recall, did you receive that, Judge? Into evidence? I'm going to re-tender 930 out of my abundance of caution.
Well, it's an evidence.
Okay.
It's an evidence.
And
He
now,
has every objection.
now that we've done that, I want to ask you, can you please bring up your software that you created so that we can view states 916 and 930 using the iViewer 360. Now start there. You can actually maneuver through the 360, correct? And there's a little bit of a lag here.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain why we have a little bit of a lag?
So in order to project this onto the display, we're using something called AirPlay. And so we both have to be on the same wireless network. Wireless is a little slow in this room. And so when I move my iPad, there's a small amount of lag time or delay between how it's displayed on the screen.
I want to do some threshold things for what's now being displayed for the jury. And that is the photographic image 916, but
Yes.
on your viewer, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. First, can you pan down so that you're able to show that void and explain what that is?
Yes. So this is the void that's directly below the scanner. The distortion is caused because basically, if you think of this, we have a spherical image around like putting a picture on a balloon. And then when you unwrap it, you end up with that distortion down at the bottom.
Okay.
So that's what that is.
Will you raise that up now, your iPad, so that we're able to view, and we'll let the lag catch up out of the windshield. All right. Now, can you pan a little to the left so we can see outside the driver's side door from this scanned image? I'm going to do this using this streaming feature first, and then I'm actually going to get you to get down with the iPad so that you can show them real time without the lag.
Yes, sir.
I now want to ask you to pan over to the right side so we can see what's depicted in State's Exhibit 930. And just so we can show the full functionality of the software, unlike a human, it actually spins full 360, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So are you actually capable to see the back headrest?
Yes, sir.
Because this turns, unlike a human head, can turn all the way around, correct?
Correct.
So why don't you show? Okay. And then can you also see the ceiling, since we've done the floorboard, we should do the ceiling as well. And we'll let that lag catch up. Now what I'm going to ask you to do is to step down. And one of the features on this iPad is that you can actually, using the software, you can actually scroll, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if you move the iPad, the image will move to the right.
Yes.
Let's go to State's Exhibit 930. I think I just turned on C. You can put the iPad down now, and I want to ask you some questions about 930 and what the photographic option of the scanner captured using State's 930. You can step down with me. Start on this side of the jury box.
So what's visible here in the color captured image?
What's that?
We see the passenger seat, we see the photographic scale that's been placed there.
Is this the passenger floorboard?
Yes, sir.
What's that?
That's the child car seat that was placed by Detective Grimstead.
What's that?
That's the life-size male model.
For the benefit of this side of the jury box, what's that I'm pointing at?
That's the floor of the Tucson SUV,
What's that I'm pointing at?
the passenger seat, horizontal portion,
What's that?
child car seat,
What's that?
life-size male model.
You can take your seat. I think that's all I have to.
Plus,
Thank you. Mr. Dustin, you are in no way offering an opinion of what Ross Harris saw or what he could have seen on June the 18th, 2014.
No, sir, I was not there.
I mean, just to be clear, the sight lines that we have, those are representations of what your scanner could see.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay? And what your scanner could see depends on where it's placed,
Yes, sir, that's correct.
right? What items are placed within the scanner's view,
Yes, sir.
what items are not placed within the scanner's view.
I'm sorry?
Well, let me put it this way. The way objects are situated
Yes, sir.
at the time that you make the scan
Yes.
is what your finished product is going to show.
I think I understand the question.
Okay.
So if I understand, ma'am,
Of course.
I think if I understand the question, you were saying that it's a static capture at that moment in time, whatever the scanner sees as it rotates.
And that's what I was looking for, static.
Okay.
You gave us an example of the accuracy of the Faro scanner just in this courtroom.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
And when you did the scan of this courtroom, the positioning of objects in the courtroom were static, right?
Correct.
Okay. If you were asked, for example, just as Mr. Evans did from this part of the courtroom, if you were asked to capture sight lines of a juror that is seated in one of these seats, okay, how would you go about setting up that scene?
What I would do to, for instance, whomever of the jurors, what we would do is we would get your approximate eye level, and then we would place the device in that location and try to perform a scan from there. Alternatively, you could, you might be able to pick a point off the floor and elevate it to a certain distance and approximate it.
Okay.
But ideally, what you would do is you would try to approximate the height of the viewer.
And the ideal level of accuracy for you is what?
I'm not sure I understand the
Okay.
question. As far as you're talking about the location of the scanner head,
Sure.
I would say ideal level of accuracy is going to be within a half of an inch, maybe an inch.
Within half of an inch. So,
Depends on what I'm trying to do with it.
I see. If, for example, a juror is standing,
Yes, sir?
you would want the height of that individual, right?
Yes, sir?
And just given the height of an individual doesn't necessarily give you an accurate measurement for where that individual's eyes are, right?
That's correct.
Because our eyes are located differently upon our face,
That's correct.
right? And the position of the person that's standing, if they're slouched, or if they're leaning, or if they're leaning forward or leaning backwards, correct?
That's correct.
Those are variables. Now, if someone is seated, simply their height doesn't fully give you all of the information that you would need to accurately establish the sight line of that individual,
Unless you measured that specific individual, I think that's a fair statement.
right? Because people's torsos are different.
Correct.
Two people that might be 6 feet tall might have different lengths in torso and different lengths in legs.
I think that's fair.
And especially when we're talking about sight lines of an individual that's seated in a chair, they might be sitting differently. They might be leaning back in their chair, correct?
Correct.
When you were asked to develop some scans and some scenes of this case, originally you did some work starting way back in July of 2014, correct?
I think we may have actually done some in June, but yes, end of June, first part of July, yes, sir.
Okay. And in the summer of 2014, you were asked to map the scene of a Home Depot parking lot, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
You were asked to map the vehicle that these jurors saw yesterday.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And then you created a scene where you merged those two scans, right?
That's correct, yes, sir.
I'm picking up on the lingo I'm trying.
Fine.
You merge those two scans so that you can create what we already saw, like a flyover video,
Yes, sir, that's correct.
right? And during voir dire, or early this morning when I was asking you some questions, we talked about the model that you created,
Yes, sir.
right? And you positioned a model within that merged scan,
That's correct.
right? So that whoever is looking at the software can fly over and see the scene with those objects in place, the
That's
car
correct.
and the parking lot with the model. Okay? And the placement of those objects, the vehicle, the car seat within the vehicle, because at the time that you did those scans, there was a car seat placed inside the vehicle, correct?
Which time?
The first set of scans in 2014.
Yes, that's correct.
And you did not place the car seat in the vehicle.
Did not.
Your understanding was that Detective Stoddard placed the car seat in the vehicle.
I believe he did, from best I can recall.
Okay. Or was it Detective Grimstead?
I don't recall Detective Grimstead, if he placed it the first time or not. I'm sorry, I just don't recall.
Okay, that's all right. You have indicated a desire to be accurate. You came back after starting your testimony yesterday, and it probably irked you a little bit that you had testified that what was it, the speed, was it speed of light?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you were off, or you misspoke,
Yes,
perhaps.
sir.
And you felt compelled to bring that up yourself and make it right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me just take a look so that we can be accurate. Let me hand you this report here. You're on that approach?
Yes.
Well, will you take a look at your report and let me know when you have found the source of the car seat placement in your first set of scans from 2014?
Is there a specific page?
Having seen where the placement of the car seat,
No, that's what I'm asking. Do you have a specific page?
that is a copy of your report that you created for
It
the
is?
first set of scans in 2014.
Yes, sir.
Well, do you recall speaking to me over the phone in April of this year?
I do.
If you had told me in April of 2016 that Detective Stoddard was replaced items and was the source of information for the positioning of objects in your scan, would that be accurate?
I think that's accurate. I believe that's what I believe to be true. Believed. That was on the very first scan, I believe. I know for sure it was not me.
Correct. to the best of your recollection, Detective Stoddard was who provided you with the data, okay, the placement of the vehicle, the placement of the car seat in the vehicle. Excuse me.
As best I can recall. Like I said, I just know for sure it was not me.
And when you created the scans in 2014, you didn't actually take the Hyundai Tucson back to Home Depot and place it in that parking spot, correct?
We did not.
Okay, you did a scan of the vehicle, and then you merged the two scans of the parking lot and the vehicle. So you kind of virtually put them at the same scene,
That's correct.
okay? And the measurements for the model that you created
Yes, sir.
to replicate Mr. Ross Harris,
Yes, sir.
that information was given to you by Detective Stoddard,
Yes, sir.
okay? And the model that you created was 6'3",
That's correct.
correct?
Judge, I think I need to raise an objection. The defense objected pretty strenuously to an item of evidence that they're now getting into, and we specifically articulated weren't going to present to the court in large part because of their objection. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding, is there some strategic reason why we would be getting into that area?
I'm certainly not the person to ask.
Well, and I'll object to relevance since it hasn't been presented to the jury.
Judge, it is in evidence. Mr. Evans said that he wasn't going to play a portion of what's on the hard drive, but the hard drive and all of its contents were admitted over objection.
Or, you can proceed.
And so, the information about Mr. Harris's height was provided to you by Detective Stoddard.
I believe it was over a phone call, perhaps. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you also did a panoramic photograph similar to the one that you created 2 weeks ago,
Yes, sir. That's correct.
where you positioned the tripod
Yes, sir.
in the driver's seat,
Yes, sir.
correct? And the goal there was to replicate the sight line of Mr. Ross Harris,
No, to replicate my sight line.
or your sight line.
Well, because I was the person we used.
Okay. And the decision was made to replicate your sight line because you're also 6'3"-ish, is what you testified to, right?
Yes, sir.
And so the belief was to replicate your sight line would be to replicate Mr. Harris's sight line.
I don't know if that was the belief, but that was the method that we used.
Okay.
I was the closest one to his height.
To Mr. Harris.
Yes, sir.
And when you positioned yourself in the vehicle in 2014, the way that Detective Stoddard confirmed the accuracy of the sight level to try and replicate Mr. Harris's was to just basically ballpark it and just look and then give you the thumbs up, correct?
Effectively, what he did was, I sat in the driver's seat. Detective Stoddard positioned himself so that he could view my location. Did not move. I placed the scanner in that same position. He told me elevate it, move it, whatever, adjust it, so that it was close enough. And then he said that's good.
And you had to exit the vehicle in order to place the tripod in the driver's seat, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, and so before you exited the vehicle and before you placed the tripod in the driver's seat, Detective Stoddard didn't take a measuring tape and keep it at the location where your eye level was in the car seat, correct?
Did not.
Okay.
I got to object as to relevance. That scan has not even been shown to the jury. We're not talking about what happened in 2014. This is the 2016 scan that was just done a couple of weeks ago with Detective Grimstead. So it's not relevant.
I'm not over objection.
Do you have that panoramic image pulled up on this computer where you could access it quickly?
Which one?
from the first group of photographs taken in 2014.
In there?
Do you mind stepping down, please?
That's a different photograph.
And I'm showing you what's been admitted as demonstrative A, State's Exhibit 295. And there's your
Yes.
initials, your signature there. And the date is April 4th, 2016, correct?
Yes, sir.
You'll put that up. Change the input.
Actually, no.
I think you just need to unplug it, Mr. Rodriguez.
Okay, thank you.
You go right here. Either one.
Okay. Excellent. All right, if you will go to the panoramic image that you took in 2014.
Do we call our list?
Yes, if you back up one more. I believe it'll be iGear 360 images.
All right, we want to look at the image.
Yes, please. The panoramic photo that we looked at. Great. All right. And so, similar to the panoramic image that you took 2 weeks ago, you had the tripod placed in the driver's seat, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And when you took this photograph, okay, we see a Home Depot bag here with light bulbs inside of it.
It was a bag, I'm not sure what was in it.
Okay. We see the child car seat here.
Yes, sir.
This is a doll, correct? And you can see the legs of the doll, correct?
Yes, sir.
You can see that the handle of this car seat is, it appears to be touching at least the passenger seat, almost as if it's in between the two seats.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And the level of the lens,
Yes,
the
sir.
height of the lens, was ballparked, confirmed by Detective Stark.
Yes, sir.
And if we'll go back to the panoramic image that you took in this scan. And I said that, this scan, I'm sorry, the October 2016 panoramic photograph that Mr. Evans spoke to you about. Okay. And we see here on the new panoramic image that the car seat is not wedged up against the passenger seat, correct?
That's correct.
There's a space,
Yes, sir.
right? And I think one of the photographs actually captures that space. There we go. Mr. Dustin, if you don't mind, please. States 916 is what's blown up on the Monday, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then a close-up states 9:30.
Yes, that's correct.
Right. Is there a way to focus in on what is depicted here in states 9:30? Sure. You want to be accurate. Can you get any closer?
Actually, yeah, because that's, we actually did a screen capture from within the software.
Oh, great. So you can actually go straight to 9:30, right?
Yes.
Would you do that, please? Are we just waiting on it, or? Okay. While we're waiting on it to load, if you don't mind, just stepping in front of the jury with me. Oh, okay, okay. Now to get to that part. Great.
So let me do another one.
Perfect. All right, so 9:30 is what we have pulled up on the big screen.
Yes.
And this is the new panoramic image that you took, right? It was 2 weeks ago. And there is a gap, a space, between the handle of the car seat and the passenger seat.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, now, can we pull back and see the full view here of 916?
Sure.
The full panoramic view. Excellent. If you'll actually just pan back and have centered the car seat in the middle of the frame there. Great, thank you. All right, and if you recall, the first panoramic image that you took in 2014 based on Detective Stoddard's information, the doll, you could see the doll's legs, correct?
Yes, sir.
You can't see the doll's legs at all there.
That's correct.
I mean,
See his feet.
that's, I mean, you would agree that's a pretty significant difference in what can be seen based on one set of measurements and what can't be seen based on another.
I believe that the car seat there was an issue with the location of the car seat
Right.
the first time,
Right.
and so obviously the car seat's going to be in a different location.
Right. The car seat was moved. That's your
Car seat,
understanding.
car seat was in two different positions in the two scan.
That's right. Okay. And Detective Stoddard supplied the information for the measurements and placement of the car seat during the first photograph.
I believe that's true.
Okay. But what we know, because this happened just 2 weeks ago, is Detective Stoddard had nothing to do with the information provided for the placement of that car seat.
As far as I know, that's true. Yes.
He wasn't there.
Yes,
He didn't confirm any measurements that were taken.
yes.
And in fact, we know that the tripod, well, we know that the estimated sight line, or the estimated height for Mr. Harris, for the first set of scans in 2014 was 6'3".
Yes,
The height that you used for these new scans, just 2 weeks ago, was for an individual that was 6'2", correct?
no, sir, no. For these? No, it was myself again,
Okay.
same.
Did you adjust the tripod down
No.
an inch to account for someone that was
I
6'2"?
positioned it where Mr. Grimstead told me to put it.
Okay.
I did what he told me.
Okay, did Detective Grimstead,
You'll have to ask him.
well, I think Detective Grimstead probably doesn't want to come back to testify. So let me ask you, since you were there with Detective Grimstead.
Yes, sir.
Did he ask you to replicate the height or the positioning of Mr. Ross Harris in that driver's seat?
No, sir.
Okay, it was just, what can
I say?
What
Yes,
can
sir.
David Dustin see?
Yes, sir, that's correct. May I sit? or-
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. Right. And you would agree that you'd agree that this doll, that the head of the doll is not slouched to the left or slumped over at all, correct?
As based on what appears to be that way, no, sir, it does not appear to be slouched either direction.
Okay. Were you and this is the new photograph, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And so, 2 weeks ago, were you given any information about what witnesses have testified to in relation, in regards to the positioning of Cooper Harris within the car seat?
No, sir.
Before you did this new photograph and these new scans 2 weeks ago, you were certainly prepared to testify that the first set of scans and the first photographs that you took fairly and accurately replicated the scene that you scanned, correct?
That's true, it was.
It fairly and accurately replicated the scene as it was staged for you, correct?
At the device, everything was placed, I did no positioning of the interior objects.
But you were asked to drive down to Glencoe? Or did you fly?
Oh, I drove.
Okay. You were asked to drive down to perform new scans on a Saturday morning and on a Sunday, correct?
Yes, sir.
Just 2 weeks ago, in the middle of this trial, and you were asked to take new scans, new photographs of totally different positioning of objects in your scene.
The car seat was in a different location, I believe. If you would have asked me prior, I paid no attention to the location of the car seat other than what I needed to do to try to capture it.
And so as you sit here today, the images that have been created, the scenes that have been created, they fairly and accurately depict the scene as it was staged for you this time, right?
That's correct.
But you can't offer an opinion if we're anywhere closer to how the car seat and what Mr. Harris may have seen back in 2014, correct?
I wasn't there, that's not my job.
But, I mean, part of your work is accident reconstruction mapping, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in those kinds of cases, you're provided exact measurements and data from experts, correct?
Exact might be a stretch, but measurements, yes, sir.
They're certainly trained in the areas of accident reconstruction.
Correct.
And you're dealing with law enforcement, right?
law enforcement, accident reconstructionists, forensic engineering companies, yes, sir.
Okay. And then sometimes scientists, right?
Not that I recall.
Well, I think of engineers, I guess as scientists, and, but engineers.
Yes,
okay? People that are very precise,
most.
most. Okay. And so when you're working on those kinds of cases, you're provided data that's been measured and investigated and really thoroughly looked at by these experts and engineers, correct?
I take the data that they give me and that's what I use.
Your function is not to correct mistakes that detectives or accident reconstructions may
No,
make.
sir, it's not my job.
You just set the scanner and capture what they put in front of you, right?
Effectively, yes.
Now, in this new scan, if you don't mind stepping down, can you show the jury the panned out full view of the panoramic image? States 916. All right, great, thank you. You would agree that this doesn't demonstrate all the human variables and the human condition of eyesight.
That's correct.
Humans cannot see 360 degrees.
No, sir.
And in your field of study and in your work, you can't offer an opinion as to what is in someone's peripheral vision or what is
No,
in a
sir.
human being's peripheral vision.
Yes, sir.
Okay? So when this scanner is, let's say, directed directly at the steering wheel, you can't offer an opinion as to how much of this panoramic image would be captured in a human being's peripheral vision,
No, sir.
correct? But if you can focus on this rear view mirror here, please. You can't see the car seat, can you?
No, sir.
You can't see the legs of the doll,
No,
can
sir.
you? And this is in the new scan.
Correct.
This is with the better measurements, correct?
Correct.
And you'd agree, they're better.
Different measurements, whatever they are, but yes.
They're different measurements from the ones that we had up until 2 weeks ago.
Well, different car seat placement.
Yes. Okay. Now, if you'll go back to, the vantage point, your vantage point. That you were talking about with Mr. Evans. Okay? In order for you to have had the head of the doll in this car seat centered within your line of sight, you would have had to have been turning to the right, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Similar to the motion that you may make when you're changing lanes and moving over, correct?
I would say that's true, yes, sir.
But again, when we're looking from your vantage point straight into the rearview mirror, you can't see that doll, can you?
No, sir.
I think that's all I have right now.
I have a few questions for you. The purpose for you coming down a couple weeks ago was to make sure that we get it precise, correct?
Yes, sir.
And did you agree to do that when we asked you to come and rescan the vehicle to make sure that we got the placement correct?
I'm sorry?
Did you agree to do that
Oh,
when we
yes,
asked
sir.
you, would you come down and make sure we
Absolutely.
got the placement correct?
Yes, sir.
And who was the first person to bring up the 2014 scans?
It was the
Objection
objection.
relevance.
They just displayed the 2014 scans, so I think it's fair to a line of questioning for me to now ask about it.
I think so.
Okay. But now, who actually displayed that for the jury during your testimony here, the 2014 scans?
I did, well, we did for the defense.
Okay. I want to go to the 2014 versus the 2016 scans and do a comparison. Can you step down with me? Before we leave this scan, can you please pan over to the rear view mirror, Karen? All right. When you sat in this vehicle, did you make any adjustments to the rear view mirror?
No, sir.
What is depicted as you look in the rear view mirror from this vantage point? Can you actually see out the back window?
You can see the headrests on the back seat. You can see the rear window glass of the vehicle.
So this, what we're depicting here, that's actually a garage door from the back window, correct?
It is.
That was all visible from the scanner's height without you making any adjustments to the rear view mirror?
Correct.
Did you actually sit in this vehicle yourself?
I did.
Could you see out the rear of the vehicle using the rear view mirror?
Yes, sir.
And a little to the right. To the best you're able. Yeah. The line of sight captured in 9:30. Let me ask you some questions. When you sat inside this vehicle, and looked to the right, could you see the floorboard?
Yes, sir.
When you sat in this vehicle, looked to the right, could you see the car seat? The passenger seat?
Yes.
When you sat in the vehicle and looked to the right, what did you see up here?
You could see the car seat and you could see the inner lock.
Could you see the car seat in your periphery as you sat in that seat too?
As I turned?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Let's minimize that and go to the 2014 scan, please.
The image?
Yeah, the 360 image. I am, indeed. And if you'll hand over to the rough approximation of the view of 9:30, if you will.
So this is just a photograph. It's not actually the scan.
Can you pull it up in the scan?
The scan?
Yeah,
And you want this scan later?
I do, so we can use that, the 360 view. Make sure. Unplug. So there's no confusion, this is the 2014 scan, correct?
Correct.
Okay. 2014 scan, what's that?
Floor of the Tucson
What's that?
passenger seat.
What's that?
The view out the right window,
What's that?
car seat,
What's that?
and male model.
Minimize that. Please. Go to the view depicted in 930.
In the same top one.
Yes. Scroll just a little bit. Okay. That's the rough scene depicted in 930, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
This is the 2016 scan.
Yes, sir.
Who placed the car seat for the 2016 scan?
Mr. Grimstead.
In your presence?
Yes.
Okay. And was I there too?
Yes.
Ask you some questions about the 2016 scan. What's that?
The floor of the Tucson,
What's that?
horizontal portion of the passenger seat,
What's that?
view out the right window,
What's that?
car seat,
What's that?
male model.
You can take your seat. You were asked the questions. If you're correct, on the 2014, you could see a little bit more of the legs of the doll, is that correct?
In the 2016 scan or 2014?
2014. 2014, the legs were more visible, would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. And in 2016, while you can't see the legs, you can still see the feet.
Yes.
What's this white object there?
Appears to be the foot with the inside of a sock.
Right. And that states 916. All right. Thank you. I think that's all I have.
Excuse me, big ones.
Mr. Dustin, when you sat in that seat, you knew that
Yes, sir.
there was a car seat there, right?
Yes, sir.
You knew that there was a model inside that car seat.
That's correct.
Fair to say, if you're looking for something, you can see it.
Sure. Yes.
And if you're not, you may not.
May not.
Even when we're looking for something, I mean, you're familiar with the phrase, even in Adairsville, if it had been a snake, it would have bitten me, right?
I've heard the term, yes, sir.
Yeah, you're looking for something, and then, gosh, it was right in front of me. And that's even if you're looking for something, right?
It's true. Yes, sir.
But here, when you sat in that seat, you knew that the model was inside that car seat, right?
Absolutely.
So when you were asked, could you see the male model when you were looking off to the right? Well, I mean, you remember knowing that the model was in that seat, right?
That's true.
You're familiar with confirmation bias, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, you testified previously that you don't know how much of this panoramic image would actually appear within a human's periphery. Right?
That's correct.
You don't.
That's true. I do not know.
But based on your memory of having sat in that chair, knowing that the model was there, that's how you can remember when looking to the right, yeah, I can see the dog.
That's difficult for me to answer because I've never sat in there without the car seat in there, so I don't know.
The only memory you have is of the model inside that car seat, right? As far as you sitting in that vehicle, the only memory you have of seeing that model in the car seat, in the vehicle, was when you were sitting in there that day.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I've worked on the vehicle, so obviously I saw the doll in there from a variety of different locations.
I guess I was just following up on your answer that it was only based on your memory that you had only seen the model inside that car when you were in the car. Did I misunderstand your
I
question?
think so. I'm not sure we're talking, right? We're not, I think we're a little out of phase here.
Okay.
Let's reboot. So what are your questions?
Let's review. Well, let's just move on. You did a flyover, and you talked about it a little bit with Mr. Evans earlier. There was a decision to, at certain points in the flyover, to hide the roof, correct?
Correct.
I think that was your term, that
Yes, sir.
you hide it with a component of your software.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
You'd agree during that portion of the flyover, it's not reality. It's not replicating what someone could see June
That's true.
18, 2014, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, during certain portions of your scans, all the windows are rolled down when you're scanning the vehicle.
Correct.
All the windows are rolled down, right?
Yes, sir.
Like this photograph here, 904, 909 perhaps.
Yes, sir.
All the windows are down.
Correct.
If there were evidence that at the Home Depot parking lot, all the windows were up, you'd agree these images don't fairly and accurately depict the vehicle on June the 18th, 2014.
Other than just that the windows are down instead of up.
And you know, as you scanned this vehicle, at no point does the roof come off, right?
That's correct.
So you agree that during portions of your video flyover where the roof is hidden, that's not a fair and accurate depiction of that vehicle in reality.
I think that's true.
And even on the new scans, we don't have the glare of the front windshield. There's no glare of the side windows, the front seat windows, correct?
Correct.
Those were hidden, correct?
The windows, the window glass, yes, it was removed, actually.
They're actually removed,
The glass,
the
yes.
glass was. Okay. And you would agree that during portions of, well, because they were removed, in all portions of your scene and the video of your scan, the flyover, because those windows have been removed, it's not a fair and accurate depiction of the vehicle in reality on June the 18th, 2014.
That's true. May I respond? So, I mean, it's just to show the spatial orientation of everything inside the vehicle from a top view. That's the only reason that that's exposed. You notice we start with everything in place.
Right.
In fact, I even added glass to the rear portion, dark, so that it would not give that impression that you could see through clearly.
Right. You'd agree, and I think you said it yourself, you didn't want to give off the impression that you could see through the back window and the side window.
Right.
However, though, you're aware that during the morning of June 18th, 2014, there were people that were walking right up by that vehicle.
I don't know what they were doing.
You haven't been shown surveillance footage?
No, sir. Not that I ever recall.
What about photographs of the vehicle from June the 18th?
I have photographs, I've seen photographs of the processing. I've seen photographs from the final, by Uncle Mattio's restaurant. I've seen, had a photograph from the surveillance camera.
Okay.
Single photograph.
One photograph.
One photograph.
Okay. Does that one photograph have a person near
No, sir.
Hyundai Tucson? No?
No, sir.
So even when you did the first scans, Detective Stoddard didn't show you any surveillance footage or
Not that I
still
recall.
trials or surveillance.
Not that I recall.
And even when the DA's office called you back to do a new set of scans with new measurements and new placement, you still weren't shown video surveillance and photographs, correct?
Not that I recall.
You remember testifying earlier this year in a motions hearing where the best evidence of a scene are photographs.
No, actually, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's what I said. I said photographs are a component, if I recall correctly.
Well, your decision to place these black frames in place of where the rear windows and the back hatch window is, you didn't want to give off the impression that anyone could see through or see into the vehicle.
I ran it by District Attorney Evans. I said I have the option, because I actually I've got a different 3D model of the vehicle. It's something in the same software that we use for the character. So I have a full 3D model of a Tucson. And so what I did was I took that window glass, and then I imported just that window glass into the scan data so that I could place that in the area of the rear windows. And Mr. Evans responded saying, can you turn it on or off? I said, yes. He said, then we'll leave it in.
You wanted it on.
He wanted it in with the option of turning it on or off. Was what I recall.
Now, in having this discussion with Mr. Evans about how to set the parameters and stage the scene for your new scans, were you made aware that throughout the morning there were people walking by the vehicle that could absolutely have looked into the vehicle and seen if they wanted to?
It's called for speculation.
I think I already responded. I don't know any of those details.
You didn't know that was the evidence in court in this trial.
Sorry?
You didn't know that. You didn't know that was the evidence when you were called back down here to do new scans in the middle of trial.
No.
If that were true, okay, I know you weren't here, okay, and I know that you weren't made aware of that, but if that were true, you would agree that your scene isn't really illustrating that evidence, that testimony, correct?
I think that's true.
Nothing further, Judge.
You can step in. Approach.
At this time, Your Honor, the state rests.
Ladies and gentlemen, the state has rested your case. There are matters now that I need to take up in preparation for the next steps of the trial. It's a good time for you all to take a break, and then there's lunch waiting for you so that we can get ready to resume the trial after the lunch break. Close notepads, open mind, no conversation. You'll have a very good break and lunch.
All rise for the jury, please. Please watch your step going down.
Oops, literally.
Please watch your step. Yes, sir.
All right, let's do what we need to do so that we can get ready for this afternoon.
Without going into any detail, Judge, at this time, I want to go ahead and renew my prior objections and prior motions for mistrial for the record.
Yes, sir. I'll let you do that.
And for the record, I'm going to, at this time, move for directed verdict on all 8 counts on the basis that the state has not proven any of these counts beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm going to exercise the right not to make any specific additional argument on any of them at this time, but I'm not waiving anything here.
So the defendant has a motion for directed verdict as to all counts of the bill of indictment. And you can exercise your right not to argue those matters at this time. Is there anything else for the defense before we get ready for after lunch for you to get, if I can speak, for you to be ready to begin to present your evidence?
No, the court's aware that we've intended to put up a case, and we're going to call witnesses, and I've made the court aware that we're going to go ahead, we have 2 witnesses ready today. I've let Mr. Boring know who those 2 witnesses are. I don't think we'll take the entirety of the afternoon.
I understand.
But-
We've had that conversation, and you've made me aware.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Of which I'm very appreciative. Well, I have a motion to eliminate concerning one of the witnesses, Detective Murphy. Is that one of the people you anticipate calling?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you seen the motion to eliminate?
Mr. Lumpkin, I believe he's going to question that witness, and I believe he has that motion.
Can we go ahead and do that before we break?
You prepared for that?
No, ma'am. We have been in the midst of trial. I'd like to have a chance to actually review the motion, look
I have a problem with that.
We do it right after lunch, if that works before.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Is there anything else for the defense?
Not at this time.
Is there anything else for the state?
Just we'd ask you to deny directed verdict. We believe the evidence has been such that it should be allowed to go to the jury on all counts.
All right, I'll do that. Let's come back at 1 o'clock. We will start with the motion in limine concerning Detective Murphy, and then we'll proceed into the defendant's evidence. Everybody have a good lunch. and a good day.
We'll bring this one just in case.
You want it? You want it? Bring it? In case No, from the motion here, I thought I might need to. We eat it about 3 times a week, so I'm used to it, yeah. Not used to it, but it's like secondhand to me.